right. Well, everyone, hi. My name is Jacinda Walker. I am the chair of AIGA's Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. And today you are joining us on our very first YouTube live session where I'm going to be talking a little bit about the research work that I did and answering questions directly from you all. I have the Slack channel running, and I also have the group chat. So if you guys are there, type something in so I know that you're here. I also have a few slides I'm going to be sharing with you all this hour, and I want to just kind of make sure that I'm being heard and that I'm connecting well. So if you don't mind, I'm kind of gonna jump in a little bit about. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I've been in the design industry now for about 25 years. It's a really long time. I was the graphic designer for Cleveland Division of Water, and I started getting bored at my job. It kind of happens when you've been working a really long time. But to combat that, I started mentoring. And I had young people coming to me had young people coming to me, just asking questions, asking for advice. And I started pulling everybody together to do things together. And so a lot of the research work that I have stems from the work that I did with my mentees. I have about 50 of them running around the United States these days. And I just really wanted to do something to impact them and to improve the lives and the journeys that they were having as designers. So I was running workshops and activities and learning sessions, very similar to what we're doing right now. Sessions, we would have things at my home. We were doing a ton of different things. And so when I started doing that, I got the opportunity to meet some people at Ohio State in the design department. And they shared with me that some of the challenges I was facing with my mentees were not isolated. They were not only things that was happening to me here in Cleveland, they were things that were happening nationwide. And so I was very intrigued, and I accepted the opportunity to attend graduate school to study this on a national level. And so what you're going to be hearing a lot about today is the 3.5 year research study that I did for my graduate work. The questions are coming in. All right. So my research work, I want to make sure I also thank everybody for coming and logging in. I'm getting tons of questions, so please forgive me if I turn away to make sure that I answered all of them. My research work is called Diversity in Design Disciplines, Strategies for Investigating Effective. Yes, I'm nervous, so please work with me. Let me just kind of jump into where my slides are and how we got started. I'm going to click over here, here. Okay, that didn't work. There it is. Okay. There. Perfect. So as you can see, this slide represents the 2016 industry data for the designers. I got a lot of this information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And right now, we're looking at 878,000 designers nationwide. Now, the labor statistics, they record data based off of who they self-identify. So from your tax records, from when you put your employment information down at your job, all of those things, and that's how we get these numbers. So as you can see here, it's 54.8% women, 5.1 African-American, 8.4 Asian American, 10.6 Latino, and one of my favorite numbers, we're going to come back and talk about this a little bit. Right now, we're looking at a single-digit representation with African-American design educators. Come back, great. The reason that data is important is because, again, like I said, I thought this was really something that I was having a problem with here in Cleveland, and I thought that it was just something that myself and my mentees were facing. I thought that we just weren't seeing a lack of diversity in design. What I didn't know is that you all were seeing a lack of diversity in design. And so my research work investigates effective strategies to expose Black and Latino youth to design-related careers. And in beginning this work, I started to look at what was the journey, what was the path to become a designer. Had we published anything, or was there anything out currently indicating what that journey looks like? When you want to be a doctor, there's tons of paperwork and information that you can research, and it tell you exactly the steps that you would take, step 1, step 2, step 3. If you want to become an engineer, you can find the same thing. If you want to become a police officer, you can find the track that teaches you specifically, step by step, what it takes to become a police officer. But I noticed that there wasn't any of that for design. And not only was it not any of it for design, there wasn't much of it for any of the design disciplines. And the information that was out was really, really, really difficult to understand. And each school had a different piece, and each type of school. So universities had a different way to become a designer. 2 years colleges had a different way to become designers. Even trade schools and certificate schools had a different way. And I was just not very conducive to be able to understand that, especially for a young person who already may not be aware of this problem, of how to become a designer. So I developed what I'm calling the design journey map, and I'm going to share that with you as well. Here, that is my next slide. Share, thumbnail. Perfect. So this slide represents the design journey map. And with the design journey map, it's broken up into 4 passages. And the passages are foundations, proficiency, workforce, and influence. And with these 4 passages, we begin to talk about and plot out what are the steps along the path to become a designer. And so in our foundation step, we have public school, we have extracurricular activities, we have career competency laid out through the entire journey map, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as well. In our proficiency phase, this is where we have higher education. We're looking at undergraduate, internship opportunities, and graduate education. In workforce, we're looking at employment, freelance opportunities, and entrepreneurship. And in our positions of influence, we're looking at faculty educators, management, C-suite positions, and retirement. The map is circular and with an arrow at the end, in my hopes that people who reach this influence phase will come back and focus and help the foundations level to kind of reinforce that. The 4 passages are also representing the gaps that happen from moving from passage to passage. I'm going to have some slides that talk about that as well. I want to also let you know that the career competency pieces are the soft skills that a student should learn along the way. Some of the questions that I always get when I show this map is, can you skip passages? Yes, you can skip passages, but understand that there are specific things that are learned in each of the passages. So skipping a passage means that you may have also skipped some important information along the way. The map also shows the places. So the foundations is the blue. So going from the blue to the purple, which is proficiency, you'll see a gap there with a gray triangle. Those are the places where we're losing the most people in transitioning from passages to passages. I am getting my first questions that are kind of coming through right now. Why is this research important? Yes. The research is important because it helps us to discover more strategies, better ideas, more innovation, more creativity. Increasing the diversity of design will also create opportunities for underrepresented youth. It'll also create opportunities for individuals and young professionals who are in the pipeline currently, who are looking for advancement, who are looking to be able to move to that next passage in their life. And this research work is also important because there's nothing out right now that actually lays down what is the journey to become a designer. And so this journey map is something that I use with my young people to be able to help them to plot and plan these next pieces. It's actually been a really, really effective tool. So I'm go back into my presentation because there are some other questions as well. Share. And here, there we go, so that you guys can see everything I'm seeing. There you go. So this is the journey map. In looking at the journey map, I also developed 15 strategic ideas to coincide with the passages. So depending on which passage that you are in is kind of going to dictate which strategic idea you would use to help you successfully move through that. So as I mentioned before, in the foundations passage, strategic ideas are going to look at like design curriculum, integrated academic lessons, academic resources, which is a huge one that we're seeing, after school care programs and design school programs, and then some sort of informational website. For proficiency, the strategic ideas that coincide with that passage are informational learning videos, online design classes, portfolio reviews, and archives for written works by designers. You know, John Maida says we need to start doing more designing, and I have to agree with him. In our workforce passage, we are looking at the traveling exhibit. We're looking at professional associations. Shout out to AIGA. Entrepreneurial programs. And in our influence passage, we're looking at public service campaigns for designers, design recognition and awards programs, and educational conferences. So those are the 15 strategic ideas. And again, they align with the specific passages. Now, one of the biggest things, I'm trying to put this here so I can see all the questions all at the same time. One of the biggest things that this research work, I'm going to go back to the first slide that I skipped accidentally. One of the biggest things that this research also really, really helped me to uncover is what is actually the problem. You know, when we start talking about a lack of diversity in design, you know, if we can't name or identify the problem, how can we absolutely begin to solve it? And so what I uncovered was that the lack of diversity in design is not a single problem. This is a really tough one because we've been talking about this problem since 1968. In 1968, Whitney Young, who was the president and found one of the first presidents to the National Urban League Association, he delivered a report to the AIA, and he indicated that they were not distinguished because of what they had done. They were distinguished simply because of the fact that they ignored the disparities and the discrimination that was currently happening within the architectural industry. And so that was the first time when we really, really start hearing about this issue that's happening in design. In 1963, JFK, he called this disparity that we're going through right now, he called it a moral crisis. And so that's really where the Civil Rights Acts comes from. That's really where a lot of the work and the foundations of why we have this lack of diversity. But the actual problem stems from multiple problems along the path. So when people say the lack of diversity in design is because we don't have enough K-12 programs, that could be true, but what happens if you're in the journey already? That's not the problem that you're having. So the challenge here is we have to begin to treat the lack of diversity in design as a series of problems along the journey. So if you're in that foundation section I was talking about, then your problems are going to be associated with access and exposure. But if you're in workforce, your problems are probably associated with opportunity. And if you're in that influence passage, your problems are probably associated with value. So if we begin to look at the design journey holistically instead of just in one specific area, then we can really, really, really be able to solve problems along the journey. We can begin to say that, hey, listen, I'm going to plant a seed in the foundations passage, and I'm going to plant a seed in the proficiency passage. That way, when we're working on this, we're not just tackling one issue in the journey. So being able to really, really, really understand that the lack of diversity in design is not one problem. Because if we keep treating it like one problem, we're never going to solve it. Being able to understand and really recognize the uniqueness of the problems that happen along the journey is how we will begin to solve it. So one of the things that I'm personally working on with my company, Design Explorer, is being able to have something going on in each one of these passages so that we can begin to move the needle a little bit along the way to improve those types of situations. I also want to be able to share with you what a solution to closing the diversity gap would look like. I have this slide for you as well. Application. There's that one and this slide. These are the design principles. These are the 4 things that are going to be required to solve the lack of diversity in design. This is what a solution should have. A solution should be comprehensive, collaborative, local, and scholastic. Comprehensive meaning that it should solve more than one passage in the design journey. We're not going to be able to solve lack of diversity in design if we only work in proficiency, if we only work in workforce. To effectively solve the lack of diversity in design, we have to be able to work in multiple passages. We have to be able to work in foundations and proficiency simultaneously. We have to be able to work in proficiency and in workforce. The second principle is collaborative. This means that organizations like AIA and AIGA and IDSA, we will all have to come to the table and work collectively and collaboratively. Local means that the solution must go directly to the students. I see so many great programs where the students are forced to come to the program, trekking across cities and miles. People who don't have transportation or access to vehicles, they can't get to these programs. So if you're operating a program right now that doesn't go directly to the students, you could change everything if you were able to just bring the students to your program. It really makes a huge impact, and it just makes a world of difference. I can't explain it to you enough. And then the last principle is scholastic. The scholastic principle, this is the one that's really, 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 really biting us because we have so many educational requirements in school. Here in Ohio, and I'm not sure how other school districts are operating, so please forgive me if I don't address your specific state, but here in Ohio, geometry, if you don't pass geometry in high school, you don't graduate. So it doesn't matter if you're as good as Rembrandt or Picasso. If you fail geometry, you don't graduate from high school. You don't get to go to college. You don't get these types of opportunities. So those types of academic, scholastic opportunities are something that we also need to really, really work on. I had an opportunity when I was researching to work with a group here in Cleveland who were doing integrated academic lessons, meaning that they were mixing art and design with poetry to help the students to better understand the two. They were utilizing typography to also help with geometry. They utilize color and study color theory to help with science. And these are the types of things that we may have to start looking at deeply to affect change scholastically in this as well. I'm getting a chime that there are more questions coming in. It's about 24 after the hour. My first question is coming in as, what are the main gaps where we are losing young people along the way of their interest in a design career? Yes, I'm horribly biased. I think we are losing people in the proficiency stage, and I'm going to show you a slide for that. Share. Uh-oh. Oh no. That went weird. Wait a second. Application. There it is. Application. Sorry about that. I want to show you this slide. These slides represent, these next 4 slides I'm going to show you, these represent the challenges that are happening in the current passages. So passage 1, the stakeholders are going to be students, parents, educators. The primary problems are that students are not exposed to design or the possibilities of design. Schools may not have art classes. If we can't have art classes, we can't get to design. There also might be limited resources. The primary needs here are going to be access to information about various types of design-related careers and the transitional issue here. This is the big one. Students are not exposed and they may not develop an interest or a skill set to pursue a design-related career. So in referencing the question, what are the main gaps that I think we're losing the way? Yes, there are major problems in this foundation stage, but I don't think this is where we're losing the most of the students. There are systemic things that are happening in this passage that have absolutely nothing to do with something specifically that we are doing or we are not exactly doing. But in the proficiency stage here, this is where I believe we're losing a lot of students here. In the proficiency stage, one of the primary needs that I found is an access to mentors, to industry professionals, and to support resources. The lack of internship opportunities that happen in this passage, being able to prepare yourself for the academic rigor of a design education is very challenging if you have not had that before. Being able to have someone to work with you as a mentor or even a really fabulous advisor, being able to even see other professionals doing what you are currently in school to do is a huge challenge. So in my opinion, the proficiency passage is where we're losing the most young people to becoming designers and getting into a design career. The second question is, what is the one you think is the easiest to fix? Let me share the next 2 slides and then I'm going to answer that question. For passage 3, you can see here the transitional issues are little knowledge on how to navigate the workforce. Some primary needs here are professional development, people or professional associations to help mentor. We need people to be able to assist with relationship building and opening doors for people so that they can move simultaneously throughout the passages. Some problems here is learning how to support yourself with a design education and a design degree. And in the influence, that's this one right here, in the influence section, we're looking at the infamous problem of the glass ceiling, being able to get that professional development, the leadership training, being able to know how to continue to cultivate your talent once you've been in the industry 15 or 20 years. Some of the transitional issues here is that it's difficult to adjust to your new responsibilities and a lack of support at this level for creative professionals. So the question is, what do I think is the easiest one to fix, I'm going to say I think the easiest passage to fix is the influence passage. Again, this is where all the knowledge is. These are the people who've been in the field for 15, 20 years. They have seen some things. They done some things. They done participated in some things. They've done the job interviews. These are the people who've done the job interviews. They know how to nail it. They know what to say. They know how to prepare themselves. They know how to do that. We need these individuals to tell us what's happening, to report back what happened, how to go, who did you know, what went well, what didn't go right. There's nothing wrong with failure if you just acknowledge that there's learning in it. So if you're in this passage, if you're in the influence passage, I think you all have the greatest opportunity to come back and to kind of help and assist and aid the rest of us. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I answered more questions and to be able to address all of the big stuff. Hold on, let me just check in with my question line here. Let's see what they're saying. Here's another question coming in. How different are fears from youth of color versus youth in general when entering the design profession or just considering entering it? Yes. The fears are really, and fear is an ugly word. Let's just put that out there. Fear is an ugly word. That really I find that it's stemmed in lack of knowledge. I also find that it's stemmed in confidence. So the biggest difference that I see working with students of color versus non-students of color is a confidence because of their background in not having these design programs in high schools, summer camps that talk about design, computer camps, things along those lines. And so a lot of times, a lot of the challenges that they face are simply based in the fact that they just are coming from a different place, and there may be a little bit of catch-up required there. What I really love, though, is that there's so many educators. I'm working with like 4 or 5 schools right now, and the educators at these institutions are really acknowledging that difference of the background, and they're doing specific things right now. Like they're offering speaker series to their students. They're going an extra distance to expose their students to professionals. They're creating AIGA student programs in their schools. They're asking seasoned professionals to come and talk and to share their work and their experiences. And those types of things really help with the confidence level. I got some Facebook questions here coming through. There is a Ms. Davis who says she would love to hear my tips for minority designers in a less than diverse company. Oh, yes. What are the things to look for to say that it's okay and time to move on? Okay, that's 2 questions. I'm going to get the first part first. What are my tips for minority designers in a less than diversity company? Got it. That was me. When I worked at the water department, I was the graphic designer. So it was maybe like 12,000 employees. I was the one creative person. There was a phenomenal designer over at CPP, and her name was Yolanda. And so she and I often would swap stories and talk and things like that. So what I would advise, if you are that designer, don't be alone. Find your community. One of the main reasons I started mentoring is because I was alone and I didn't want to be alone. And so I would make my mentees go everywhere with me. They hated it. I know they did, but I didn't care. We were there. We became each other's support staff. So if you are in a less than diverse company, I would find your community. That could be AIGA. We have 72 chapters all over the world. It's probably not a state that doesn't have an AIGA chapter. And if you're in California or Texas or New York, we've got like 2 and 3 chapters. I think we got 4 chapters in California. So there's tons of people like-minded people there. I suggest you find them. You know, this thing called the internet is amazing. I'm in 5 Black and Latino design Facebook groups right now. Just find your community. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. I find a lot of young people on Instagram. Um, excuse me. I find a lot of young people there. But when you find your community, make sure that you all are each other's support. So you go places together. It won't be just you. It'll be a matter of sharing knowledge, because you'd be amazed at what you think is your problem is probably a lot of other people's problem also. Um, there's another question coming in from a gentleman named Mark. If African Americans are not represented in top positions, yes, or hiring positions in agencies and firms, how can we ensure we are included in diverse initiatives? Absolutely. I understand. Will it take some sort of legislation or affirmative action? Well, great question. I want to tackle the first part and then kind of talk about the second part as well. If African Americans are not represented in top positions, yes, this is that level of influence I was talking about earlier. You know, I had the opportunity of when I was in graduate school to work with Dr. Noel Mayo. If you guys do not know him, you must check him out. He has been designing for 50 years. Like 50 years. For 50 years, he has been an industrial designer. The amount of knowledge he is retaining is insane. We need people like that to share that. So if you know a Dr. Noel Mayo in your neighborhood, go talk to them. Write everything down. Call, check in, ask them to share things, because you'd be amazed at how much knowledge that somebody who's been in the field for that long has had. And so we need those types of people to tell us which companies are receptive, which companies are open, which agencies are interested. We need those information. We need that information. And I do agree there are not many African Americans in top positions. But again, that goes back to being able to make sure that companies and schools and individuals, even ourselves as professionals, are planting seeds along the way to strengthen the entire pipeline, not just the first part, not only the second part, but the entire thing. We have to start to think about this holistically. And then second, will it take some sort of legislation similar to affirmative action? Well, I'm horribly biased. Having had studied a lot about the Civil Rights Act and affirmative action and these types of policies, I'm concerned that that is not the only route. I'm not even sure if it's the most effective, because design is growing and changing so much. The time that it might take them to put one of these policies together, the industry could change again. But what I do love, Mark, and I don't know where you're located at. If you're listening, please chime in and let me know where you're located at, because I would love to be able to point you in the exact direction. But what I do love is the responsibility of our national organizations and our professional associations. So yes, AIGA, I do hold them very accountable for helping and their role in this. We need them to be able to continue to be our voice. But that also means that we have to come and participate and stay active and lean on them. And I know sometimes it's hard, and I know that it can be messy. But if we leave and if we don't participate, how will our voices be heard if they are our national organizations? We need them, all of them, AIGA, IDSA, AIA, all of them, to be accountable to what we want as well, because these are our organizations just like everybody else's. There's another question coming in. Almost behind. This is a good one. AIGA is preparing to work on the designer the designer of 2025, echoing the research undertaking in 2007 to imagine what the designer of 2015 would look like and what competencies would be needed. Which are the competencies you think are most needed today? All right, this one, I got it. This is going to hurt a lot of people when I say this, and I hope I don't offend too many of you, but it's not only learning Photoshop. I'm so sorry to tell you that when we talk about and we look at what are the skill sets required for a designer for 2025 and in the future, what does that look like? I have not read one report that says the person who knows the most Photoshop is going to be it. It is not it. So what skill sets are needed for designers of the future are collaboration, team playing. We need designers who are writers. This is a really hard one. We need designers who are able to communicate visually and verbally and writing, because that's really how our stories will be able to travel and to live long. You understand that they just really started archiving a lot of the research and theses and dissertations digitally, maybe like 15, 20 years ago. So if you wrote about anything prior to that, it's not archived electronically, so it's hard to access. So being able to access that information is going to be really important. So we need designers who have career competencies that are in addition to the skill set of design, writing, being able to research, being able to have a broad knowledge of business and how it operates, even entrepreneurship. These are some of the competencies that we're going to be looking at. Soft skills. A lot of people highly underestimate them, but soft skills, can't speak on them enough. They are truly, truly, truly the way to go. Being able to feel confident in that interview, to communicate and to effectively share your points. Those are skill sets that we're going to need as designers. I read a report in Fast Company a few months back, and they talked about the different levels of design that might be phasing out. And it was a nice, healthy list, y'all. So if you are a designer right now who is solely in trying to increase your skills in Photoshop, I highly encourage you to think about diversifying that skill set to looking at Photoshop and maybe also looking at Premiere, being able to mix up that talent, being able to look at research opportunities as well as branding opportunities, diversify your skill set. I'm getting the chime that there's another question. It's 40 after the hour. So if there are more questions coming, please let me know. There's another one that I'm reading here. It says, okay, hold on, I'm sorry. What are the key social skills needed at each of the 4 passages: foundations, proficiency, workforce influence? What are the key social skills? I think I talked a little bit about those previously. But some of the social skills that we're really looking at here in our foundations level, those are going to be related to access and exposure. So being able to see designers and being able to understand and learn what designers are, that's going to be important. In the proficiency phase, the social skill set that is going to be needed is communicating what you're interested in, I think. Being able to verbally say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Here's what I'm looking to learn. That's going to be really important. The social skill in workforce is going to be relationship building. I can't express it enough. A good friend of mine, Stacy, she does something called strategic networking. And I highly value that, because what she does is she takes the time to learn about who's going to be at the event and who's going to be there, what types of things are they doing. So by the time she gets to the event, she kind of already has an idea as to who's going to be there and what to really be talking to people about. It's definitely a good one. And then for influence, the social skill that's going to be needed there is being able to document and to report back and to leave some sort of legacy so that designers who are behind you will be able to kind of reconnect with you. So I hope that answers that question. That chime was another question. Oh, right. There was a second part of Miss Davis's question. I'm sorry, I missed that. It says, I'm the only minority at my marketing firm and deal with a lot of anxiety about my slow development professionally and culturally in the community. I've been here 3 years and there's evidence of favoritism and no obvious openings for upper movement. I don't know who I can trust or talk to. Other designers have come in and adjusted easily to the culture and working on top projects. All this anxiety has affected my work, my confidence, and development as a career woman slash designer. Should I say something or is it time to move on? If so, what do I look for in the next job? Okay, first of all, I am so sorry to hear all of this is going on. I know what this is like. I had a job like that once. Um, well, first of all, I hope that you'll stay in touch and reach out to me so that we can discuss this in greater detail. But if you've been here for 3 years and you are recognizing this thing, I do think it may be time to look elsewhere. But before you leave, I would love if you had a professional look at your work, someone from the outside, someone that you trust to really help you to evaluate your skill set and how you might be fitting in. And maybe there's a skill set that this company is using that you're not catching on really quickly or that they're not explaining very clearly. I had an opportunity to do that once. I asked a professional who wasn't really close to me, someone who could be truly objective, to just tell me the truth and tell me what's going on with this portfolio and the work that I'm doing. Bring work from the company that you're working on and bring work that your colleagues are working on so that you can kind of really effectively hear and understand what the person, the feedback they may be able to give you. And the person that you pick to do that, it should be someone who has a background in the same industry that you're in. If not that, then specifically an educator who will be able to outline some of the things that you may need to kind of beef up on. Then the second part of your question is, I answered that, who can you trust and talk to? Find that industry professional, find your community. Other designers have easily come and gone. All this design has affected my work. Yes. What do you look for in the next job? Great. Okay. So in the next job, some of the things that I think that you should look for. First, outline the specific things that are not. I do this a lot with my students. Here, I'm going to pull them out. These nifty Post-it notes. I ask my students sometimes to write everything out, pen it up, write it all out. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Maybe you put the good stuff on green, you put bad stuff on red so that you can kind of have a better idea of how much and how much is good and how much is bad. And maybe the in-between stuff goes on yellow. Walk away for a couple of hours. Walk away. Just walk away. When you come back, relook at what you've posted and look to see if there are any groupings. The groupings that you identify would be the things, whether they're good or bad, that you do or you do not want to look at. So being able to have this list is really how you begin the job hunt for your next task, for your next position. Let's just use, for example, that you don't like to make logos. So when you're reading the job description, if the company says we do a lot of brand development, that is not going to be the place that you would want to go. If you are very tech savvy and they say that, hey, listen, the work that we're doing is predominantly conceptual and creative based, then this may not be the company. So doing the exercise of knowing the specific things that you like to do versus the things that you don't like to do, compare that to what's written in the job description. And I think that might help a little bit. And again, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to kind of sit and chat with you about this a little bit more. I hope that was helpful. There are some questions on Facebook, but I don't know how to pull those down and lose you all at the same time. I'm trying to think here. One of the questions, another question that I'm receiving, what are the skills young people of color lack or are most behind, and why with versus those who've followed a more traditional and privileged education path? I'm going to read that question again because I don't know if I understood it properly. What are the skills young people of color lack? I don't think it's a skills of what young people lack. I think it's a lack of exposure that has created the difference that people might be seeing. What are the skills young people lack or are most behind, and why with those? I'm sorry, this question is a very, very difficult one. And those who follow a more traditional path, what are the skills young people of color lack? I guess I'm a little bit biased because I don't think the young people lack skills. I think they lack exposure or lack access. And that can be adjusted. That can be fixed. We can share that. That was the time again for more questions. I'm going to hold on to this question. If you're the person who sent this question, please email me. I'd be happy to answer it once I can understand it a little bit better. Question, do you think HBCUs have a role to play in creating and placing more Black designers in the field? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Exclamation point, emoji, all that. Yes. But here's the catch though. They do have a role. I mean, I read a study once that said 45% of Black professionals come from HBCUs. So this means that our HBCU programs, they need to be in a line with what is contemporary, what is going on currently in the design industry. So HBCU programs need to be offering brand development. HBCU programs need to be offering BFAs in design. I know a lot of HBCU programs right now that are doing digital media degrees and things like that. But we need to be able to make sure that they are apples to apples. And this role for me that I see that HBCUs can provide, I think that they can provide more design, more access in their communities and in their area, in their communities, in their cities for schools of color. So I think that being able to be in an area with an HBCU school, that high school program should be in a direct relationship so that the students at the high school program can see the students at the HBCU school in that piece, and they'll work together better. There was another question that came through. Question, strategies on navigating certain corporate cultures are important. Yes. Realistically, there may not be an ideal and open culture in the beginning. How can people overcome that? Yes. Yes, and we're seeing a lot of that now. Corporate culture is real, okay? I have had my share of negative corporate culture, and it is truly, truly difficult to navigate. The challenge, though, is that corporate culture doesn't just appear. That's why it's called corporate culture. It's been there. The catch is for you to be able to recognize it early and act accordingly. So when you go to that first job interview, when you go to that first job interview and you begin to observe what the other employees are working on and even how they're working and in the spaces and in the environments that they're working, all of that type of stuff counts for corporate culture. So if you see these types of red flags, you should accept them as they are and act accordingly. The second part of the question was, how can people overcome that? Being more realistic and honest with yourself about what type of culture you need to be successful. You can also go to websites, websites who openly communicate what types of values that they have and that they hold dearly to their organization are important. When you do see those, then you understand. But if you don't see those also mean something as well. So think about that, okay? I have another question. Oh my goodness. I see a familiar face. Okay, what do you say to parents who discourage their kids from entertaining a career in design? Oh, wow, this is a great question. I'm gonna read it again. What do you say to parents who discourage their kids from entertaining a career in design? Well, I have a lot to say, so I'm gonna try to, because it's 53 minutes after the hour. I'm gonna try to keep this one brief so I can at least take a couple more questions. All right. So to these parents, first of all, I get it. This is your firstborn, your first child, your first daughter, the only son. I get it, and you want them to pick something that you feel is going to be visible, something that's going to provide financial stability, and something that's going to provide longevity. And I'm here to tell you, design does all of that. Design does absolutely all of that. Daniel Pink has a book out called Right Brain Thinkers Are Taking Over the World. It's a great book, but it talks about how our society is becoming a creative culture, and how without these creative sensitivities, it does create a lack of success. So for parents who are discouraging students, their children, into picking art and design fields, I would really, really look deeper to find out the root of the why, because there is plenty of money to be made in design. Last I heard, user interface designers were coming out like $75,000, $95,000 a year or something. And it also depends on what region you're in. So I don't really think that parents discourage them because they don't like it. I think they discourage it because they're not familiar enough with it to really, really be able to make a better decision and to guide them along the way. I'm working on a project here in Cleveland for a design diversity index that will have aggregated data so that parents will be able to make better decisions with their students and with their children on design related careers. But the good thing is that nowadays with the internet, a lot of stuff is out here. So you don't have to worry about not being able to get the information. It's really a matter of who you ask and where you're willing to go and look for that information at. So I hope that helps a little bit. That was another chime. I don't know if you guys can hear the chimes. Okay. How does AIGA implement this across chapters when chapters seem fairly autonomous? Yes, 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 yes. Well, we just had an amazing leadership retreat in Dallas where I had the opportunity to share and to talk with 72 chapter leaders across this AIGA network and help them to understand where we really are. And so I shared that first slide with the data information. And afterward and throughout the weekend of the leadership retreat, we had so many chapters. When I first started as chair of the task force, we had 8 chapters who had D&I director positions, or point persons, as I like to call them. Today, we have 18 chapters, and currently we're working with another 10 chapters to develop more D&I representation. So if you're in a community and you don't see yourself reflected, our goal is to be able to do this and to change the entire industry. But we need you to stay and to come forward and talk to us and share this information with us of where you are, what your chapter is doing, and really what you see. AIGA is 100% volunteer-led, 100% volunteers. And so you would be surprised at how that one little thing that you think you want is something that 15 or 20 other people really, really want as well. And what are some of the things, second part of the question is, how does AIGA implement this? We're actually doing a lot of things to implement this. Here on the task force, we have 4 subcommittees. Our 4 subcommittees are programming, content, education, and guidance. And what our 4 subcommittees are doing is working with each of these point people in their chapters to be able to help with programming, to be able to help with guidance, to be able to help with educational opportunities, and so forth. So if you log on to our AIGA.org diversity and inclusion landing pages, we have an events page there that lists all of the different activities that are happening in different chapters across the country. We'd love if you participated and came and told us what you wanted to see, or more of what you wanted to participate, more of what you wanted to be available. So we're doing these types of things. Also, we are doing a ton of stuff to, we're also doing a ton of stuff right now to have our task force information public facing on the website as well. So if you log on to, again, our AIGA pages, our AIGA.org landing pages, we have a community impact report that also lists out a lot of these things as well. So check out the community impact report, check out our landing pages, look at our subcommittees and check out what they're doing, what our subcommittee leaders are doing. It's 1 minute left. Thank you all so much for coming and your patience. Sorry I jumbled around a lot. I was a little nervous. I want to encourage everybody to join us back here on June 29th. I'm going to have myself and the entire task force committee leaders are going to be joining me. It's going to be myself, Gus Granger, Stacy Sundar, Maurice Cherry, and Jessica Arana, who are also going to be joining us, talking about what we're doing specifically in the task force, what we're doing specifically with chapters, and what we're doing to be able to diversify this industry. Thank you all so super much for joining me. You all know where to find me. I'm not super hard, to catch up with. I think I have a lot of information out there. You can find me at Magenta Prints on Twitter. You can find me at designexplore.com. You can also check me out on Facebook, where we're also logging a lot of the things we're doing there as well. Take care. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day.